What's up, crew? I'm here with Boot. He is a dear friend of mine. Actually, we work together with the Jonas Brothers, and he is the lead backline guy, but also really, I would say he's the PM, even though he wouldn't admit that. Just with the amount of duties that he has.
Part-time.
Part-time PM,
Yeah.
but full-time hours.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, this guy, it's really cool to have Boot here to speak with us, to share some stories, because look, we're building a touring crew career. There's no one way to do it. He's got a unique way that he's done it, but more importantly, he's got a couple of things that I want him to share with you guys, so you can just really understand the dynamics of this crazy career that we're all working towards. So what up, Boot?
Hey, how are you guys?
Awesome, man. We're doing good. So Boots based, you're in Arizona, is that right?
Yep. Cave Creek, Arizona.
And you were born, like, you're from there, or from the
Yeah,
Phoenix
I'm
area?
from Phoenix. Yeah. Born in
Okay.
Phoenix, lived in Scottsdale, but basically it's all Phoenix. Yeah.
Gotcha. Did you find that when you were first getting started, that it was hard to break into the professional level of touring generally because of being in Phoenix, or did you not have an issue finding your way?
Well, I don't know that I ever really had the problem, because I think I'm a unique. I never really looked as getting into it as like, this is the job that I want.
Mm-hmm.
I went about it the complete weird way that I don't even know if you can still do it anymore. But I just happened, my best friend is a drummer,
Mm-hmm.
and all of my friends were in a band, and I was just the guy that helped them move their stuff around.
Right.
So basically how that happened was, luckily enough, the band got big enough, because back in the late 90s, early 2000s, the Phoenix music scene was pretty it was pretty big, like on the national scale. I mean, coming off the end of, like the Goo Goo Dolls and the, other bands that were coming out of Arizona and stuff like that. Like,
Oh, okay.
we were on like a little bit of a national spotlight, I guess, in a weird way. Like, a lot of people were getting signed out of Arizona at that time frame. So the band that I worked for, they were a local band, but I mean, we were doing local shows for over 1,300 people.
Oh, wow.
So they were pretty big, and they were big enough that we ended up doing a lot of regional touring and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's actually how I ended up getting into it, like
Helping the bands.
yeah, I was just helping them, and it was just fun to hang out with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in college, but like, I could leave, I went to the Art Institute of Phoenix, so it's like I could, when I would finish something, I would always, or a semester, I would always have break time. And if I could make it out with them, I'd go out with them to like New Mexico, or,
Okay.
Las Vegas, or,
Right.
San Diego or something like that, and go do shows with them, just to hang out with my friends, really.
Right.
And then,
not getting paid, or?
no, not getting paid at all.
Right.
Like,
What school for?
graphic design.
Graphic design. Okay, so not even
Yeah.
in the industry, really.
No. I went to school for graphic design, graduated. I have my degree, and I use it to make truck packs now. Like, so,
Good truck packs,
yeah.
I might admit.
But
Phoenix being a spot, though, like, who knew at the time? Do you think timing was a big thing with this, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the timing of just like happening to have my friends that were, in the band, and they, they went and did shows. And then the real big timing, where I really got my start was, we did a regional tour opening for a band at the time that was very small. We were like first of four, and that band was Avenged Sevenfold.
Oh,
And
wow.
so basically what happened was, we were in a van, and we were we did like 18 cities, and we basically, happened to start in Tucson, and yeah, we went and did that. And then when the tour ended, through the whole tour, it was funny because about, I don't know, you know, Boise, Idaho, or something like that, in the middle of our 18 shows, it was basically like, uh, the guitar player from Avenged Sevenfold, or lead guitar player, like Sinister Gates, Brian Hayner, he he came up to me and he was like, it's weird that the first of four has a guitar tech, if you could call it that at that time frame. Which, I mean, like, I worked in the guitar shop. I mean, I learned how to do all the stuff that I still know how to do today, but like, it was just funny because why do you guys have that and we don't? And I was like, well, I don't know. And so I ended up setting up their guitars
while you were out there with the opening act.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And so then basically what happened was, when we were wrapping up, it was like, why don't you stay
Yeah.
and come into our van? so
So
I mean,
let me
yeah,
unpack that,
please.
because Boot, a lot of people have this mentality of, well, it's not my job, you know,
For sure. For
and
sure.
in the beginning, you just, well, really, even at every level, you just can't be that way. And I think that that's probably really because you added value to the Avenged Sevenfold guys by doing free setups, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was just basically like, you know, the one part of touring that a lot of people don't realize, um especially in the part where, like, for instance, you're part of the crew coach team and stuff like that, that are doing like local gigs and stuff like that, on big stages like the one in your background, and like the arenas and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. There's so many people that are touring the country in vans,
Mm-hmm.
doing 100 cap bars and stuff like that. And it's funny because we have a big camaraderie when we're out on tour and stuff like that, with our buses and our travel party and everything else. But like, you really don't have the same kind of camaraderie than you do when you're in a van with 7 people. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You've
I
done
do.
those van tours and stuff
Yeah,
like that,
that's
and
how I got my start.
it's a different kind of world. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
different kind of brother and sisterhood. It's
Oh, yeah.
like you're like living with these people. It's not like, I mean,
Sharing
it's not
hotel
like,
rooms, everything.
yeah, you're shared hotel rooms. You're like, I mean, you
Sleeping
couldn't
on the
get
van
away
floor.
from one of them if you wanted to, because you're only 8 feet away from them, from the
That's
driver's
true.
seat to the back of the van. So
Yeah.
it's just like, even not being in the same van with them, and but just being on the same tour, we were all still in the same boat.
Yeah.
So like, we're
True.
all friends, and we became like, really good friends, and the after show hang and pre-show hang and everything else. And so it was kind of like, I do this for my friends, well, now I'm friends with you. And so it was like one of those things. So like, I never really looked at it as like a, you have to pay me kind of thing. It was
Yeah.
more of like, you know I was almost just thankful that, like, we were out here doing it.
Yeah.
They were giving us the vehicle to go and, you know, promote this band that I was
Right.
working for.
Right. And have the opportunities. I mean, and that's the mentality that you have is just to step up and help and be cool. And
Yeah,
I've done the same thing where it's like, I don't know, somebody says, hey, can you help me? I'll help them and then be like, oh, I'm Kenny. What do you do here?
yeah.
It's like, just
No,
help.
yeah.
You're out
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Just jump in and help, because, it's important. It really it really is important, because someday, you know, you're going to need help, and somebody's
Yeah.
going to help you, and it's hopefully that it's still, revolving door and stuff like that, with the way people operate. I mean,
Yeah.
and that was the thing. They said, why don't you finish out the tour with us? And
Right.
then I worked for them for like 3 years.
Well, that's a
So,
big deal. That's a big deal too, because Avenged
yeah.
Sevenfold, like you were saying, they were in a van and trailer at the time.
Oh
Avenged
yeah, like this big at
they were
that time.
and of course now they're a big band.
Huge.
Even I know who they are, and I don't even partake in the metal. Aren't they metal?
Yeah.
They're metal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though I did do corn, it's no big
Yeah,
deal.
absolutely. I
uh,
mean,
but I'm so fascinated by this because I push the relationship game hardcore,
sure.
and that's exactly how you built relationship. Was you added value to them, you served them, and that's really a big component of what I push our crew coach members to do, is really just look at this as serving. At everywhere that you can, find a way to help somebody, because that is in turn building the relationships for the future. Let me ask you a question, man.
Yeah.
I actually wrote a chapter in my first book about this, about not being friends with the artist, that you're friendly with them, you've got bonds and connections, but you're never really friends with the artist, because at any point it's a business. And if you do the wrong thing with that artist, you're gone. Now, I'll tell you this, though. I've changed my insights and my perspective about this since I've written that book, because I had Amos Lee come to my wedding. He actually texted me last week. I can
Right.
kind of say I'm friends with Amos now,
Yeah.
And so in your world, I mean, you were literally saying, well, I was friends with you, so now I'm friends with you. Are you friends with the Avenged Sevenfold guys? Do you think that you're friends with the artists that you've worked with?
Yeah, I mean, well, this is how I look at it. I feel like you writing that chapter in the book is correct.
Okay.
And you having a relationship with Amos is correct. I think it's all about taking temperatures.
Mm.
Like, like, let's put it this way. Back in those days, you know, like, it wasn't a hard thing for us to be friends because we were just friends. I mean, we're a bunch of pirates like rolling around the the
Yeah.
bar scene and like wherever we could play and stuff like that. But like in the grander scheme of things now, like larger scale artists and stuff like that, if they want to be your friend and they actually reciprocate friendship,
Mm-hmm.
then you're friends.
Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, it's always being friendly.
Yeah.
Like when um I worked for Marilyn Manson
Mm-hmm.
for 2 years, year and a half, something
Mm-hmm.
like that. I mean, I talked to him on the phone because his one of his assistants handed him the phone the other day. And it's like, I wouldn't call us friends, but I mean, he knows who I am, and he asked how I was doing and stuff like that. It's just a
Yeah.
friendly acquaintance and stuff like that. And like, I worked for Kesha for like 5 years, and we worked together on everything,
Right.
like stage design, like
Yeah.
um
Which you knew her family and mom.
yeah, and because
Very
they were
deep.
all part of the thing and
Right.
everything else. And it's like that is a thing where it's like I would call her a friend,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't necessarily need to talk to her all the time. And I think it's one of the things that I don't know that you should really go chasing after that type of friendship.
That's a good way to put it.
You know what I mean? Like that's
Develop.
not, yeah, it's just, but it just naturally
That's right.
happens. If you're gonna naturally be friends, then you're gonna naturally be friends. It's kind
That's
of like with like Amos coming to your wedding and stuff like that. It's
yeah. I
like
didn't ask him.
that there's just a natural
That's
progression,
right.
and that's how a regular friendship builds. So I
That's
don't
right.
think there should be any I don't think there should be any like cutoff, like
Yeah.
don't be friends with the artist. It's really just don't go don't go asking them to be your friend, like, hey, come on, we're
Right.
friends, like
Because
whatever.
those
It's
people are
like,
out there too, man.
yeah.
You
No,
see them
absolutely.
people. Oh man, it'll wear you out. What they call them, the
Absolutely.
germs.
Yeah, I mean it basically just comes down to the thing where it's like you're busy, I'm busy, we're all busy. Imagine if you were 5 times as busy and somebody came up to you and was asking you to be their friend that
Happens
you
on Facebook
happen.
Messenger all the time.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I
No,
mean
man.
that's
Say that
that's
again.
the response. That's
Yeah.
the response that you would get from them.
Yep.
And I mean, but the thing is, there still is the line, realizing that you can be friendly, but like the second they ask you for something, you can't be like, oh, well, but we're friends.
That's right.
They're
Like a
still
fence.
they're still signing your checks,
Right. Right.
you you do what they say.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah, I know. And it's hard too, because I mean it can be alluring sometimes too when you're a really comfortable person. I'm a very comfortable conversationalist. That's why Amos came to say at my wedding, because we were just, like you said, developing that natural rapport. And it's hard too, because an artist, depending on your artist, can be very alluring. And then of course,
yeah,
like I remember like Seal was that way with me, very alluring gentleman
yeah,
guy, just like personable, and spent a lot of great time together. But then it was like, hey Kenny, why isn't this right?
exactly.
You know.
And you need to say, well, I'm gonna make it right.
That's right.
I
That's
you
right.
know, there's no,
Splitting
there
business
can't
and
be,
personal.
yeah, there's got to be the business end of it.
Yeah,
So
totally. Well, speaking of the business end, I want to talk about with you specifically, because just briefly, a short list of artists. So everyone here knows you've been mainly in backline and stage and
yeah.
production management, right?
Hmm.
And so, what are the short list of artists that you've been with up and from Avenged Sevenfold up to Jonas?
Well, it's not that hard because I'm a long hauler. So,
Yeah, yeah, you are, man.
there's
Big chunks of
different,
time.
there's two different kinds of people in this industry. There's the people that work for a lot of people, and then there's the people that only work for a few people.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. That's the
No.
best part. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah. It
Like,
just depends, though. It could be something wrong with it if you are a gig hopper. I wasn't
well,
a gig
yeah, but
hopper. My natural times just, it was
yeah,
time.
no, and that's the thing. There's just really just the two different types of people.
Yeah.
Like mostly like on the vendor side of things. Lighting, audio, video, things like that. You're not gonna find those people that work for that artist for a bazillion years.
Yeah.
They go from job to job to job because their boss tells them where to go, and their
Yeah.
vendor assistant and things like that. So like, you know, for me though, so anyways, short list.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did Avenged Sevenfold for a while. I used to work for this band out of Chicago called Kill Hannah, and really that was because my friend Elias is the drummer of Kill Hannah. He was the drummer
Okay.
of Opiate for the Masses that opened for Avenged Sevenfold. Um, then I took a little bit of break. I uh,
Why?
I just I got to the point that I felt like I just needed a break. I was kind of burnt out. I mean, it was riding in a van for 5+ years
Okay.
started to,
Was it like a
get to
seven
me.
7 year stretch, or was it about 5 or 6?
It was about 8.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
like 8. Yeah, well, no, 7. Yeah, like 7, seven
Not
and a half,
interesting. 7. Yeah.
something like that.
I had a weird
Um,
shift at 7 years too, but anyways.
yeah, you just get that thing where it's just like, I just need to put your it's like I got to get my feet on solid ground for a
Yeah.
second.
No
You're
doubt.
constantly moving, that it's like,
Mhm.
you just need a break. So I took a break and I stayed here for a couple years, um, about a year and a half. Um, and then I ended up, it was just really funny how it worked out, through other relationships and stuff, because the only other place I lived in Phoenix was LA,
Mhm.
for a couple years. And when I was living in LA, when I was off tour, I used to do studio setup and stuff like that.
Filler work.
And yeah, and so I ended up kind of getting into that world of that industrial metal world.
Okay.
And when the Manson tour was about to kick off in 2009, 8, like late 8, early 9. Um, it was like a call out of the blue, but it was like one of my friends was basically playing bass. Like Twiggy went from playing bass to guitar, and Andy went and played bass. And he asked me, he said, do you want to come on this tour? And I said, oh man, I haven't been on tour in forever. Like, like whatever. And I was just like, well, it sounds like a great idea. So I went out and I haven't
Manson.
had a, yeah. So that was like end of 8. So I've been touring again full time since 2008 again.
Okay, cool.
So it started in like 2000 to 2001, and then the break, and then I started again. And then so I did Manson, and then that was the thing that was the funniest part about the crossover was I just happened to once again, Elias, who is my best friend, who's the drummer, he ended up doing this little startup, and her name was Kesha, and he was like, "Hey, you need to come out here," and I said, "Sure." So I did Kesha, and I did Kesha from 2010, like end of 2010 to 2015.
From Manson to Kesha, what a
Yeah,
change.
it's pretty funny how like it was just went from that to pop. And then the funniest part was I never stopped working for Kesha. I basically just kept doing that. And then when we would have off time album cycle, I literally got a phone call one day from Andy O. I think you
Okay,
know Andy O.
I think so.
Um, and Andy O was working for Cirque du Soleil and said, "Hey, I
Okay.
need somebody." And this was the only time that I had ever worked having nothing to do with music.
Now, can I just stop you though?
Yeah, please.
I know this backstory, and I just want to bring this up to the folks that are watching. You actually like this was a bucket list gig for you. Like this was
Yeah, for
the
sure.
only gig that you really actually had a sight set on, because otherwise you were just kind of taking them as they
That's
come.
yeah, and that's true because like when I was a kid, um, you know, it was like always crazy to me, like when we would go to Las Vegas and we'd go to see the shows in Las Vegas and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
I always thought I was like, man, that would be so great to like work for that. Like
yeah, sir.
it just, yeah, it's just like so cool. And then it was just so funny because like Andy O calls and he's just like, "Hey, uh you're not going to believe this, but I'm working for Cirque du Soleil." And I was like, "What are you doing with Cirque du Soleil? Like that's crazy." Because he's like a big Jake Berry guy, so it's
Oh
like
yeah,
all the ACDCs and
right.
U2s and like all
There he
that.
is on Cirque.
And I was like, well, yeah. So I immediately thought it was for like some sort of backline,
Of course.
like for
Okay,
like
because he
the
called you because he knew you were interested in Cirque, like specifically. Did Andy
no,
know
no,
you were
no. He
interested
just
in it?
called me out of the
No.
blue. It just like
Wow. How random.
magically kind of came together. And it
How
was
about that?
funny because like I was just like, cool, well, what am I doing? And he was just like, he's like, I need you because you're the only person that I feel like is at a certain skill level with a soldering iron that I know. And I was like, what am I doing? Like,
That's
this is
amazing.
crazy. Well, so basically, I ended up, he introduced me to the people from the Cirque du Soleil headquarters, and it was for like an LED costume system. And um, so yeah, I basically repaired LED costumes. So they just lit up and they were all DMX controlled and
Amazing.
programmed and stuff like that, but they would break a lot.
Yeah.
And Andy was like basically the production manager of that show, and he was saying, he was like, "Man, this thing's breaking all the time." He's like, "We need somebody that actually like knows how to fix stuff." So like in the Cirque world, you know, nothing bad about the Cirque people. They're amazing.
Yeah.
But like they're very corporate, and there's a chain of command that goes on, and to fix one problem you need to ask somebody to do this and stuff like that. So Andy was like, we need to do it in the rock way, and he basically brought me out, and I came and I basically worked for Cirque du Soleil for 3 years
Wow.
on a touring show, and I would take breaks and I'd go do Kesha for a month, and then
Okay.
I'd come back. And
And did you just do the costumes the whole 3 years?
the whole 3 years.
No way.
And I
Holy
ended
crap.
up, yeah, so it's really funny because I ended up redeveloping in the whole time frame because I basically became a head of a department. I was my own department.
Right,
So
right.
so with being a head of department in Cirque du Soleil, that means you actually get to make your own budgets, and you
Right.
get to, so it turned into a thing with the conversations that I was having with headquarters and stuff. They were like, well, when this show's done, we're doing an install in Las Vegas. So it's going to be called Michael Jackson 1
Oh,
in
right.
Las Vegas. And so we need to develop this to make it ready for install. So basically, I wrote the book for the people that are in Las Vegas for
Michael
for
Jackson one.
MJ1 and stuff like that.
That's
So
cool. Let me ask you, would you have even taken the Cirque gig had you not like wanted Cirque in your past? Would it just been another call that you would have been to Andy, been like, hey, I appreciate it, man. I'm good.
I feel like if somebody from Montreal called me blind, like cold called me from Montreal, Cirque du Soleil, and they would have said like, "Hey, we want you to come do this," I would have probably dropped anything either way.
Just to do it, yeah.
But it was a nice cushion to have Andy out there,
yeah.
because it was like, at least I have a familiar face, which
Right.
was funny because I never saw him.
He was always busy.
Yeah, he was always on his side of the arena and I was on my side of the arena, and I think I would like maybe see him in passing like once a week. I never saw him, and so that became the dream after that.
Man, and what a dream. And let me ask you, when you first met Andy O, like where did that relationship come from?
Well, he lives in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's just funny because it's like, you know, Jake Berry lives out here and stuff like that. And that's just stuff that people you meet over doing festivals and stuff like that. And I know I'm not the best networker. I'm the first person to say I'm not the best networker, but I always do kind of I always do try to make friends with people.
Yeah. Build relationships.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to have great chats all day long and stuff like that. But one of my downfalls is I don't necessarily try to connect with phone numbers and emails and Instagrams and stuff like that.
That's not necessarily a negative, because even if you did all of that hyper networking, you still have to do what you do, which is the real superpower. Right.
Well, and so, but the thing that's funny about that is like meeting these people outside, or inside, I should say, inside our world, and then seeing them at home, then it becomes a thing where, you know, oh, well, this is kind of like a real thing. Like, I'm going to see you more often, because it's not the same thing as like meeting somebody that works for another band and another thing all the way on the other side of on the other stage or something like that, because you just met them in catering. You're just having a nice chat. But like when you're on tour with them for like 3-4 years, then you're like friends, like you're really friends and stuff like that. So like, if I see somebody, like if I saw you and I didn't know you, and then I saw you in my home life, I'd be like, hey, you know, like whatever. And then I'd be like, yeah, let's trade numbers, because it's like fast friends that way.
That's right. Like that. Yeah, you get that interconnect.
But that's one of my downfalls, and that's like I feel like it's a very important thing, like especially. But then again, one of my downfalls, I've been in this industry for a long time, so it's been working all right for me. But
yeah, well, because it's the right relationships. You know, that's what I try to stress to these crew coach folks is like, you don't have to go and network with everybody. In fact, you don't want to. You know, you want to make sure that you get in the right circles, but then you want to start developing the relationships like you do. You know,
you have to develop the relationships, because just getting a bunch of phone numbers and stuff like that, like what if they're not going to remember who you are when you're calling them or emailing them, and you don't have a good story to tag on to the first line of your email about, hey, how you doing? Remember that day? Like, it was so fun. Okay, so anyways, you know, like it's never gonna be successful. So
yeah, that's a good point.
You know.
Boot. So after Kesha, where did you go? In short, because there's one thing I want to get out of you before we finish up here.
For sure. Sorry, yeah, I know. Short.
No, this is good.
It was the short list turned into the long list. So yeah, after Kesha, I was with Cirque du Soleil. I finished out that, and that was another year. And then it was weird because I just came off that and I didn't know what I really wanted to go forward with, because I was just because I was like, do I work for the circus now, or you know, like it's weird.
Am I a costume mistress?
Yeah, exactly. Do I do wardrobe now, and or like you know? But yeah, it was really funny because I was just at home and I was just kind of sitting around, and you know, I talked to a couple other friends of mine that had other things going on, and I was just like, yeah, I'm just home, so if you hear of anything, let me know. Standard procedure
Yeah.
kind of thing. And then I got a phone call, and I ended up did a tour with Iggy Azalea. Then I did another tour with another band, Hey Violet. They were a younger band. And then I came home from that, and I was just like, oh, now I'm not the long hauler anymore. So like, like whatever. And then it was really funny because the bass player for Eagles Death Metal at the time, Matt McJunkins, he called me and he was like, hey, our guy is pretty much leaving tomorrow. Can you come help us out? And I was like, yeah, for sure. So I went out and I jumped on with the Eagles of Death Metal, and then I was with them for the last 4 months of 2015, and then yeah, like, and then yeah, so I mean, like 8 months.
Okay. And then after that?
Yeah, and then after that, well, that was the thing. It's really funny. It's like when the Paris attack happened.
Yeah. I was going to get there. I was going to bring
Well,
back.
no, I know, but it's actually a big tie-in to
Okay.
where we are now.
Okay, good.
So that was in 2015, and
Isn't that long? Wow.
yeah, and the funniest part about that is that was in November, yeah, like November 13th. And on November 1st, I had done a FaceTime call with the guy who was the PM for Joe Jonas's band DNCE.
Okay.
And he was just like, hey, I'm looking for somebody. You're a perfect fit. I have a guy now, but like I think he's gonna leave to go do another gig.
Okay.
And he was like, can I keep you like on my short roster of like quick calls? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. It sounds great. Like, like whatever. Back in the pop world, like I love pop. So but yeah, so then that was only 11, 12 days before the Paris attack.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, and so then we with the Paris attack, and then basically we stopped our tour and we came home, and then a month later I think we went back to Europe, and then I think we went to Australia and South America. And then I got a call back from that guy, and he was like, hey, I need you. And so I was like, hey guys, I love you guys, but I'm gonna go back to the pop world. And yeah, and so that was like 7 years ago.
Wow. And
So,
then
and I've been a Jonas Brother employee for 7 years now. Yeah.
Amazing, man. Well, I want to obviously jump back.
Yeah, jump back.
And by the way, being a Jonas Brothers employee, like I will just say that you're an all-around guy. Like, yes, Boot does backline, takes care of Kevin and the guitar players and all of that, but all-around guy. Boot basically hired me because that's usually a PM does that, even though he's claiming that he's not the PM. He's the PM.
Yeah.
On every show except our Vegas residency, pretty much.
Yeah.
I would say. But anyways, and that's just because that's silliness. But I want to jump back to the parachuting because,
sure.
And then we'll kind of finalize it with that, because really what I wanted to get for you guys in Crew Coach to talk with Boot was just to kind of learn about the career of touring is not linear. It is not a straight line. It pulls you in all directions, and you have to be open at times to pivots, and you also need to be very hyper aware of where you're feeling that you want to move into another opportunity, because he was with the Eagles of Death Metal through a very trying time, which we're going to talk about, and it brought him even closer, but yet here was another opportunity for him to go move into something that was not with this band that he was, because realistically, he's a long timer, but realistically, you can pretty much stay with any artist as long as you have that good rapport, as long as their career keeps going. And so,
as long as they keep you around.
That's right. And so you got to really tune into yourself to find out, why are you being tickled by this interest of another, another move and things like that. Like, it takes some hyper self-awareness. But one thing I want to talk about is the parachuting, because you really talk about relationship building. How long, going through an event like that with these people? I mean, they got to be your brothers at this point, even still.
Yeah, for sure. And that was, see, that's another thing too about that. Like, even though it was kind of the short call to come in and start doing that, I knew everybody kind of that I was working with.
Oh, prior to that.
Yeah, like,
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
just in passing. I never worked for them before, but I like knew them because they're like a big LA scene
Gotcha.
band. And so like it's just like one of those things that like it was like, oh yeah, hey, like, cool, thanks for coming out here, this is great. Like,
Okay.
now Matt and Jeff, who were the drummers at the time when I came out there, I had known them for years, because
Gotcha.
like they're both in a perfect circle. Like, it's all part of that industrial like thing. I mean, like, they're old friends of mine, and they're the sweetest men in the world. And it was fun. That was the whole reason I said yes to that right away, was because I was just like, oh well, I mean, get to hang out with my friends, like, this is great. Like,
common
like,
thing with you.
yeah, I mean, I just like to, I mean, how I work.
Be
I pretty
around good
much
people,
just
man.
sit there and just hang out. Like, I don't.
That's not true. He's always doing something.
Well, no, I'm always doing something, but I'm usually doing it from like my world, and
That's true.
and
Yeah.
I just like to hang out,
Yes.
like,
You are definitely a jovial spirit, a good one to have on the gig for sure.
yeah.
So how long had you been working with those guys up until that point when the shooting happened?
Only like a month,
Okay.
2 months,
Wow,
2 months. Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 months. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, they're, I mean, definitely like all my brothers and stuff like that. We're in, I mean, I don't know if it's like there's a lawsuit that's still going on in Paris about this, and we talk in a group chat about it quite a bit, actually, probably at least once a week and stuff like that. And um I have never gone back to one of the um you know celebrations, yearly celebrations, or yearly memorials, or anything like that. It just hasn't really kind of fit into like a schedule, because it's not like the easiest thing to just pop over to France,
Yeah.
like,
And attend the memorial. Yeah.
yeah, like, pop on over and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I still talk to those guys all the time. And yeah, I mean, and it's definitely like a once in a lifetime type of event.
I mean,
That
crazy. So set the scene a little bit for us, and then you don't talk about it to whatever degree that you
Oh,
want
I can
the
go all the
story.
way. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, that day was no different than any other day. It was we had a day off the day before, so we just came out of our hotel and piled onto the bus and drove the bus over to the club and parked in front of the club, because the next day, to be honest, I couldn't tell you where we were supposed to go the next day, because it just had never happened. So like,
Right.
and
Right.
I've like, that whole routing part has gone out of my mind. But the yeah, so like, came in, loaded in, like, set up, everyone got their respective things set up. On that gig, I was basically the all-in-one tech.
Mm-hmm.
So I was setting up, and then there was another tech that also played in the band. So like, he basically set up the two guitar players and himself. So like, Jesse and Davy Joe at the time, and then Eden, he set himself up. And then I set up drums and bass and keyboard and stuff like that. And but then during the show, I did everything, because Eden was on stage. So I changed guitars. I was like the stage manager of the whole thing on top of it. And so like, I was just doing my regular stage management stuff. And one of the benefits of, I think, of this whole thing was, when you're the stage manager, you kind of have to know where things are. So like, I knew where the exits were. And I knew, where the stairways went and things like that. And so then we got into the show, and the show, we were about, I want to say like 7 songs in, maybe 8 songs in.
Okay.
And then it just sounded like, you know, like fireworks going off in the crowd. Not technically like that loud at the time because the PA was going at the same time.
Right. So,
Yeah, when the PA stopped, it got tremendously louder.
right.
Yeah, and so it was
And where were you specifically in the club?
I was stage right.
Okay.
In the Guitar World that Eden and I had set up. So like, guitar boat, tuner, workbox, the whole thing, everything's over there. Yeah, and so basically when that happened, the idea was everyone's scurrying and they don't know what to do at this certain time because I mean it's a surprise.
Right.
Obviously.
So these guys come in the front door or something, or
Yeah, they came in the front door. And at the Bataclan, merch is sold right at the front door. And that's where Nick, who was our merch guy, he was probably, I would say, one of the first 5 that were shot.
right.
And then another weird part about that is that, not to sound cold or, I don't know the words necessarily, but the bar is literally right at the front door. So it was seriously like shooting fish in a barrel. Like everybody was at the bar getting drinks. So I mean it was yeah, and then they were so basically no one was shooting at the stage
At this point.
Yeah, this had nothing to do necessarily with the band. This had to do with some other political situation that was going on with the terrorists themselves and maybe the club owner or their business or something like that. It basically turned into that. And so really no one was shooting at the stage until people started to run to that direction.
Okay, because
kind of
it was like one way in and out basically through the front door, other than
Yeah.
the stage.
Well, there's side doors that go to the alley, and I think at the time everybody went down to the ground, so I don't think they were necessarily looking at the doors that were right there. And yeah, and I think at that point it was pretty much duck and cover for everybody. So half of the people on stage, they came over to stage right. And then the other half ended up into a little dressing room on the stage left side, which was over by the monitor world. And there's like a little office over there. It was like the production manager office, a tour manager office was over there. And so a couple of them went that way.
Did you see the shooters?
At the point where like it got to the point where the shooting had kind of stopped a little bit and I kind of peeked around the curtain because I was behind a curtain. So I peeked around the curtain and I could see the one shooter that was like directly in front of me, but like across the hall, like behind front of house, like basically at the bar.
What happened to the front of house guys and the lighting designer? I mean,
we didn't have a lighting guy at that time. I don't even know if the lighting position was at front of house for that club. But they hid under their consoles.
Okay.
So I know that. And Sean London, he was the front of house guy. He lived. He made it. He hid under the console. And then so basically everyone that had come over to stage right, the second that the shooting stopped, I was basically just, let's get out of here.
You weren't in shock, or you got kind of...
No, I wasn't in shock. I think it was more like, let's just go away from this situation.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here as fast as we can. Because I don't know what's going on, to be honest, at that moment.
No doubt.
So like, let's leave.
Yeah.
And the door, the exit to the alley, the back alley, was right behind me. So I was like, he's reloading. Everyone out the door. And so everybody had run out the door, and the
Or at
people
least that
that
was
had
over
come
there
out,
with you.
yeah, so they had run out the door. And then, like, the side of the building, um there's those doors that I was talking about. And the side of those, a good amount of people had left
Okay.
through the side. But when you leave the side, you can only go right, and that takes you to the back alley. And so they went to the back alley also. So by the time we had walked out to the back alley, people were running, you know, they were all going this direction, all going to the right. For some reason, everyone else had run out and gone to the left against the flow of traffic.
Huh.
And they had made it to, they found a taxi and just jumped in there. So, like, 4 or 5 of them jumped in there and did the thing. By the time I had made it out, because I was kind of right behind them, but I wasn't really right behind them. I mean, a couple seconds in between. By the time I had made it out, I just followed the crowd to the right, and I ended up going to a park.
Just to get away from the scene.
Yeah, yeah.
They were
And then,
still gunning
oh
people
yeah, it was
down.
going on for hours after.
How many people died? Do you remember?
132 people.
Jesus.
Yeah, I think that's the number.
And the merch person was the only people in your camp that died?
Yes. Yeah.
Luckily.
Yeah. And I think,
Jesus.
yeah, and I don't know how many other staff from the venue. That's something that I don't think I ever asked. But I do know that the house audio crew was all on stage left, and I think they ended up hiding under their console also. And so yeah. So, and that was like that went on for hours.
Yeah.
And there were people still trapped in the building with our team. Like, they were in there, like bass player, tour manager.
They were all in that dressing room upstairs.
They were in the tour manager's office with our tour manager.
I mean, those guys were in there. They could have came up there.
Yeah, they were at one point. I think at time has gone by a little bit. At one point, I think somebody was trying to get into the room. We don't know if it was a person in the club or if it was one of the shooters or anything like that. But they were basically taken out of the building by the police when everything was done.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because the majority of the people that were in that room, other than the people in the band and our tour manager, were people that had run up on stage and
tried to go out.
Just went to find a place to hide.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. And that's where they went.
And then most people died.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
130. How big? What was the cap of that club?
I think it's over 1,000.
Oh wow! Okay,
yeah.
A lot
so
of people got out.
A lot of people got out, but like because I mean, right when basically everything starts, a lot of people just scurry into a million different directions wherever they can go. Yeah, which is the right move. And so
you don't know.
Yeah, because if you don't know what's going on, just leave.
Yeah, just leave and
exit.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I know that there's so many details and things that we could discuss, but I mean, is there anything else that you kind of want to share about it?
I mean, I'm basically an open book about it. I mean, it's basically just the situation of it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I would have a different feeling if I was one of those people that was in the building the whole time.
Right.
I would imagine that I would feel a little bit, different about the event.
Yeah.
I mean, but I was only basically from the shooting starting to the time that I got out. I mean, probably less than a minute.
Wow.
So it just basically was one of those things that I'm not discrediting it, like I'm not, I don't, it's just one of those things that like my personal feelings on it was, it was basically like a car crash just happened.
Right. Sadness.
You know, it's something that went on and I was there, but I was kind of an outside bystander in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and I guess in the grand scheme of things, but I mean, let's be honest, though, you were stage right when the shooters pounded in there and started gunning people down. I mean, I think a couple of things, obviously, the door being right there and stage right was helpful. And then two, you not freaking out, to have some sensibility about you. I was in a shooting twice, and it was the same thing. People just go crazy, go all over the place, don't know what to do. And sometimes they run right to the shooter.
Sure. And that's the thing, is like the best thing you can do is get your wits about you, and then, you know, make your safe way to the exit.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you're never prepared for something like
that.
No,
not at all. I mean, but if you keep a calm demeanor the majority of your time and in your life and stuff like that, you know,
handle those situations.
Yeah, I mean, just, it's better to think about it than just to run into the wall. Like, let's put it that way.
No doubt. Well, so to last kind of button this up, just to the point of those mass shootings, that shows like we do concerts, man, and where you have big crowds is where a lot of times these things happen, cars and bombs. Shootings. And that's exactly why the 2 shootings that I was in was because it was just a big amount of people, a big amount of targets at once for these shooters. Same thing with the country festival in Vegas. I have friends that were on stage playing with Jason Aldean at the time when that happened. And it's like, you know, you can't prepare for these things, but being in our business, I think it's like, I think more and more now it's smart to understand that, hey, we certainly could be involved in something like that.
Well, that's a funny tie-in thing too, is we do a show out here at the golf tournament, and Jason Aldean is always like a special guest. He plays golf a lot, so he's always around. And it's like the funniest introduction that somebody could make between 2 strangers is like, hey Jason, this is Boot, you guys were both in a shooting.
That's weird.
And we talked all night, you know, like we're like old friends and stuff like that. Crazy, you know, and and it's just like one of those things that it's, you know, I'll never forget about that. It's part of my life, and it's
hope it don't happen to someone else.
Yeah, I don't want it to happen to anybody else, and I hope it doesn't happen. I really hope it doesn't happen ever again, you know, like.
Yeah, but, I know, man. But it's inevitable, man. Big crowds draw that, you know.
That's right.
Think about, but I don't want to end this necessarily on some downer, because the part of this thing is Boot survived. You know, everybody, rest in peace, Nick. You know, in the Eagles camp, survived, and you know, obviously on the other side of that, stronger and wiser for it. But I just wanted you to share a little bit of that. So thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Well, this was fun.
Well, we could talk about something else for 2 minutes to close it out on.
Close it out on the hour?
Well, whatever it is.
No, man, dude, this was awesome. I think really just what I'd like to do is just kind of like, what is something that you would love to share, someone that is just really trying to figure out their next move? Maybe someone here in Crew Coach, if you could just give, what's one real solid piece of advice that you would just give my members that are just pushing, they're really in the game, they're really trying to build their careers. What's something that you want to share with them in their pursuit?
Well, I mean, I think it's really something that it goes to every job, I think. I mean, you know, if you really want to do this, if this is really interesting to you, and this is something that like really makes you happy and makes you feel fulfilled, and you know, where it's not necessarily monetarily the most important thing, but can be one of the greatest monetary. I mean, basically what it comes down to is you do it because you love to do it, and you almost do it because you like have to do it. And like, you know, there's nothing else that you know how to do quite as good as that.
Yeah.
And but that could be the same thing if you were a banker. You know what I mean? You just love numbers so much. You love to go talk to people every day at the bank. Like that's your thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, really it comes down to your heart needs to be in it, and everything else will come to you as that progresses.
Man, really, really wise words. Actually, I was talking to my wife earlier today about like the levels of this. And, you know, I've been a tour manager, I've been a production manager, but I don't consider tour and production managers the top levels. And the reason why is because I'm happier doing my role, and I'm
Sure.
happier understanding like, okay, like I know some amazing techs that would never think that production and tour management is the top of their career
Sure.
just because of a title or a responsibility. The reality is you're at the top of your career because of what you said, because
Yeah.
it's connected to the heart of the matter.
Yeah, it's really just, I mean, the thing is that like I I have no love or not love for production managing whenever I do it. Um I'm indifferent to it because I know I'll be doing my job at the event that I'm laying out. So like that part is stressful and it's hard and it's everything else, but the the end of the day is I'm being paid, and I'm being paid for something that I enjoy,
Yeah.
and it's it's just like one of those things. I mean, it really is like at the end of the day, if you like what you do, it's not necessarily a job. I mean, it is a job though.
It's
we,
work, but it's not a
yeah,
job, it's a career.
I mean, yeah, it's a career. We work. I mean, there's just as many highs and lows in this career that there is in every other.
Yeah.
You know, some days are the worst days ever, and some days are the best days ever.
Yeah.
So,
But either way, you wouldn't replace any of them, is what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, you got to have those really bad days,
Yeah.
you know?
You got to have a good gauge of where the good days are, too.
Sure, absolutely.
It's
You
good
know,
stuff, man. It's really
so,
good stuff. Well, Boot, I appreciate the heck out of you, man. It looks like I'll be seeing you in January. We got
yeah, first week of January.
another J Bro show. Yeah. And so, hey, guys, here in Crew Coach, if you like this interview or this chat with Boot, just comment below in the reply thread what your one takeaway that you got from this chat with Boot. Let me know in the reply thread. And until next time, guys, go get them.